Okay, so Peer Antico, relationships reset mentor, coach and trainer, and I am the founder of Essential Awakening Mentoring. And today we are going to be looking at the 3 steps to battle-free communication. Not battle-free communication, but battle-free, as in conflict-free, as in happy, easy communication where we are able to talk to the other person without walking away feeling like you're going to stab them in the head with a cue stick or something like that. Not that I am at all condoning violence, because violence is not cool. So, a bit about me. Now, I'm also going to make sure that I'm clicking on the right thing. So, me, as I said, Peer Antico, relationships reset, mentor, coach and trainer, and founder of Essential Awakening Mentoring. I have 3 degrees in psychology, counseling certification, and I am certified as a mentor, coach and trainer in the inside out paradigm perspective. And you'll see, hopefully by the end of this, how the inside out paradigm, it completely turns on its head all other ways that psychology looks at our human experience and how to cope being in relationships and all the rest of it. So hence why I'm just so excited by it. The 3 degrees and the 20 odd years of psychology, yeah, it definitely got turned on its head for me when I started the certification in the inside out paradigm about 18 months ago. So for me personally, the journey through it has been profound. At times kicking and screaming, as one does when we realize that we need to relinquish the illusion of control. And I am now really excited and enthusiastic to work with women from this perspective. A little bit about where I'm at now professionally is that I am actually rebranded. I came into the mentoring space with a different business name and different clientele base and a very different way of looking at things than I am now. So I had to take a hiatus and rebrand, and we're in our new rebranded stage and looking forward to the launch, which I'll tell you about soon, my signature program. So yay. Anyway, what I'm not, I told you what I am, what I'm not. I'm not happily married. I know, shock horror. I'm not happily married, even though I'm a relationships reset mentor, coach and trainer. I'm not happily married for the past 30 odd years, which of course is something that we hope to, a lot of us hope to be in relationship, be able to sort of clock up decades. We see these wonderful old couples that appear to look really happy and have been together for like 50, 60, 70 years, and you just go, gee, wow. So unless I live another 100 odd years, that's not likely to happen now, being 48. But that doesn't mean that I'm not capable or it's not possible that I will have a wonderful relationship in the near future. Fingers crossed. Anyway, so I'm not a happily married past 30 years, so I can't sort of say, oh, look, I've got all this behind me to prove that what I'm talking about works. But I have been twice divorced from 2 abusive husbands, and digging deep into the thinking that was at the core of choosing men that were unwilling to love me. Yes, daddy issues. I'm able now to support women to you know, get to be clear on what it is that they don't want. First of all, see the red flags, avoid being in situations that are compromising to their dignity and well-being. But I'm also able, and this is where the inside-out paradigm comes in, is when it's not enough to live a life based on what you don't want. Very different life if you're going around looking for red flags, looking for the things that are going to trigger anxiety, like that you'll be anxious about. Now, I caught my wording there because we use the type of terms that things trigger us, things make us feel. Nothing makes us feel anything, and that is at the core of the inside-out perspective. We are living in the feelings of our thinking in that present moment. Nothing makes us directly. There's no causative effect between the thing outside and the feeling we're having. The connection is the story we have about it. And if we have a lens that we walk through the world that is looking for problems, then you're going to get a hell of a lot of problems. So I'm actually shifting away from the fearful looking for problems and trying to avoid stuff to actually having an abundance perspective, because you're tapped into what is your root spirit, your abundant spirit, something that is it's there, it is within us, it is, we all have it, and it's why we're all okay regardless of what's going on. Give you a little bit of a heads up of where things are going. So that's what I do. This is where I'm at now. So have you ever heard that communication is essential in healthy relationships? That if you don't say what's pissing you off, then you're going to be overflowing with resentment. That if you have to address relationships, that you have to address them. You know, if something comes up in the relationship, you've got to say something, like, because if you don't, the whole thing's going to explode, and, you know, we're all going to be rotten with resentment. And, you know, of course, you know, the old, well, of course, if there's a problem, I have to point it out. I have to say something. You have to, you know, have those relationship talks, really iron out everything. And, you know, that's essential. That's what communication is. Well, at least that's what we're told by movies, by songs, by pretty much most of mainstream psychology and relationship theory. Just, you know, the whole word out there is that person is causing me something, and I'm feeling something, and I have to say something about it because, you know, well, you just have to. But I've found that this is not true. Placing importance on, you know, your problem and expressing it, then it stops you from letting it go. When we focus on the problem, we're stuck in the problem. And the more story, more conclusions, more interpretation that we lump onto what was just a thought that popped in our head, when we place importance on it, when we focus on it, it gets bigger. And it gets bigger, and it looks more real, and it looks more solid, and it looks more permanent, and it definitely looks like something out there that we have to do something about. Talking relationship problems only creates greater distance between people. But what are you saying? No, my God, if you have to actually say something, surely you have to communicate. Surely I have to tell the other person when I'm angry and upset and hurt. Surely, because they're the ones that caused me that. What are you saying? Oh my God. Yeah, well, no. Talking relationship problems only creates greater distance. What is the point of communication? What are we trying to do? What is the goal of communicating? To be understood, you might say. Well, actually, no. Communication is not about being understood or understanding. The goal of communication is to bridge a gap between two people, just to bring you closer. So effective communication is communication that brings you closer together. Talking about problems, pointing out problems, particularly if you're mistakenly attributing the cause of the problem to the other person or the situation, and so therefore you don't feel like you've got control, and you feel resentful, and you feel defensive, and you feel judgmental, and then you go into battle, that whole energy is not conducive to feeling secure, to experiencing closeness to yourself, to the environment, or to the other person. And so naturally the other person is either going to retreat, or they're going to put on their battle armor and they're going to go into battle with you. So either way, you're not succeeding in bringing closeness. And that's the goal. So communication also, a lot of within the relationship sphere, within the psychology sphere, they keep talking about communication being really, really an important thing. And that's because they misunderstand what the point of communication is. When you have the goal of communication being one of being understood or understanding, then naturally you are going to perceive that the role of communication in a relationship is really, really important, because you're carrying with you an idea that, well, being understood is really essential. I have to be understood. I have to understand. I have to be understood. I have to have an intellectual understanding of what's going on, because without an intellectual understanding, you'd be telling yourself, well, then, well, what can you can't respond correctly. I'm going to really throw the spanner into the works on that one. We will never fully, actually ever, completely understand another person. Oh my God. We might want to, we might attempt to, but we can't. And we can't because we all have our own reality. For all of us, our experience of the world we live in, yes, there's a physical world. Yes, there is. There is definitely a physical world outside of my thinking. But, like, you know, if I stub my toe, it hurts. If I put my mascara on this morning, I poked myself in the eye, it hurt. Tears running down, my mascara everywhere. So, yes, absolutely, there is a physical reality out there. However, my experience of that physical reality is mine and mine alone, and it is based on my thinking. It is based on the story I'm telling myself. I could, you know, I stubbed my toe and I have a different story about that. I have a different past experience about that. I have a whole story about what it could mean and for the future and all the rest of it than the woman next to me who also stubs her toe. There could be someone out there who stubs their toe and really enjoy it and think it's really fabulous. And for them, it might be a sign of really good luck. It's their reality. We know we really can understand this very clearly, particularly when we're talking about sensations. So, for instance, taste. I'm eating a strawberry. The strawberry that I'm eating, I'm having an experience with it. I'm eating it. I have the taste. I have the story in my head as I'm eating it. Maybe it's reminding me of a really happy time. Or maybe for someone, I don't know, they could have been choking on a strawberry in the past and they're eating the strawberry and it's sending them into memories that are not pleasant. I mean, this is it. This is how it works. I can't, no matter how much I try and communicate with words, with Morse code, with whatever is available to me as a form of communication, I cannot make you understand what I'm tasting. And even if you were to take that strawberry off me and eat it yourself, your experience of that same strawberry, the taste of it and what it means, what it signifies, all the rest of it is not going to be the same as mine. That's how it works. That's how our psyches are designed. That is how the experience of reality is. So if communication was actually about being understood, making someone understand, this is why we're seeing it, this is how we're seeing it, and being understood, well, no wonder it's fraught with difficulty and in the end becomes a battleground, because it's about winning in the end. I'm going to make you understand this is how I'm seeing things. Or you've got the story in your head, well, why the hell don't they understand? You're assuming that everyone should see it the way you should see it, the way you're seeing it. But it's not. Communication is not about being understood. It's about closeness. And that closeness is not coming from the story in our head. That closeness is coming from our spirit-led wisdom in our heart. the thing that connects us, the spirit, the energy that connects us to the universe. For those who have a faith structure, to God, universe, the source, however you want to label, define that overarching framework that we are energetically a part of. That's what we are at the core. The story in our head is not what we actually are. It's just a story. And our emotions come from that story. And both things pass. So the communication at the head level, you know, battling ego desires and intellectualization is not actually the key to feeling closer. So the inside-out paradigm, this research around it has been, it's been with us in its form that it is, brought to us by Sydney Banks, who articulated what is in fact you can see through things I'm saying, you can go, oh gee, that sounds a bit like Buddhism. Gee, that sounds like mystical Christianity. That sounds like Sufism. That sounds like a lot of stuff that's out there that is talking about the human experience and the connection of mind and consciousness and thought and all that really big stuff. Yeah, well, that's because it is a fact of existence, like gravity. You know, Newton didn't discover gravity. He didn't create it. He didn't make it. He was able to see it in its mechanism and articulated an understanding to explain what already existed. So similarly, Sydney Banks, who was actually not a psychologist, he was a welder, Scottish, well, Welsh, yes. And we're talking late 60s, early 70s. And from what he initially brought to us with his articulation of what he saw as being how things work, how our human experience works, and then the implication of that on our experience of ourselves and our relationships with others. From that, we now have the three principles is also another term used for the same meaning. Those three principles being mind, you know, big mind. That's actually something to really just quickly say. When you say mind with a big M, I know that in cognitive psychology, some of the psychology modalities, they talk about mind synonymous with brain function, and it's like a little m, and they try to say it's still part of the brain. I am saying no. Others are saying no. Our brain and its brain function and the emotions and the nervous system and the body, that is one system. And it's a system that gets this flesh body floating around and interacting with the physical reality that is outside of us, the physical world. We are physical, material beings, absolutely, but we are spirit beings in a physical body. And there is an energetic framework that is separate to the biomechanics of this body. And this is where they're coming from. This is their modality that they're also talking about. So mind being universal mind, consciousness being the awareness between that separate, that mind, and thought being personal thought, the story in our head. And the thing is, we've been trained by our society, by psychology, by movies, books, the general consensus out there, incorrect as it is that we are told that it is, that we need to think our way through life, and that solutions come from our thinking. I think, therefore I am. And I used to really hold to that. But solutions don't actually come from our limited perspective, our limited thinking, from the incomplete conclusions we make from things that have happened to us. And it's incomplete because we only see what we see. We only see a very small portion, we also make the mistake of assuming intention of others. And then we build a story around that assumed intention. And if that person did something we perceive as being unpleasant, and then we've built a story around, well, they did it because of this, that, and the other, and X, Y, Z. And then we build more story and put more power into it. We've built a reality that is actually incomplete and inaccurate. And that's from our thinking. But when we take a breath and get out of our head and drop into our heart present centered, so that's where all these techniques and tools of like yoga and meditation and all that sort of stuff, why it's there is to help snap you out of being in your head and come into your heart space, your present centered heart space. And it is from there, when we take a moment and breathe into it and stop trying to control things through our intellect, that there's that little voice, that little knowing, that little push towards something in a response that is in the end going to be spacious. In the end, it's going to be a response that invites energetically the other person to experience a sense of security. We're jumping the gun. So people, however, who have understood this and not understood it intellectually, unfortunately, we have words to try and, say stuff and impart knowledge, but this is not an intellectual task. This is not a doing. This is not something about understanding in an abstract theoretical experience. This is a realization. It's experiential. It's insight, and this is how it works. So 82% of people who have realized in their lives the implications of the inside out paradigm in their lives have experienced higher self-esteem, positive changes in their marriage, personal relationships, when they've internalized it, when they've realized it in the core of their being. 91%, yep, significantly more in control of their behaviors, thoughts and feelings. And here's a little nugget: it's not about controlling them, because there's no controlling thought and emotion. It arises and it falls. So it's actually not about actively doing, which is great. I love it. 75% being significantly less depressed, and 84% in a reduction of any anxiety disorders. And I realize that time is getting away, so we're going to be very quick. So there was a time that my communication with my teenage daughter, and this is how it played out for me, that the misunderstanding was a little, she was sort of 15, 16, at the time she's 24 now, happily married, and it was wonderful. Wonderful now, alhamdulillah, and we have a wonderful relationship now. But there are, even within the wonderful overall relationships, there are times where, you get stuck in your own thinking and are responding from your thinking instead of sitting in the moment with that person, holding space for them. And that's where everything goes pear-shaped. So we were having a lot of entrenched communication. We were not able to meet in a compassionate way. She was going through her stuff. I was also still healing from, she was healing from being the daughter of an abusive father. I was healing from being the ex-wife of an abusive husband. I had been run over at 100 kilometers an hour about 7 years before. Everything started, she was hitting her teen years. And, I wasn't being able to show up. She was having her own reality and experience and meltdown, and we were not able to hold space for each other. And so every time I So I definitely was seeing she's behaving that because of not liking me. She was thinking that I was behaving the way I was behaving because I didn't like her. And we were in battle. Every time we tried to talk about the relationship between us, we were even in therapy, we went to family therapy, it made things worse, yeah? Because all family therapy did, any kind of talking therapy, what it does is it has you identifying with the story in your head. It has you blowing greater meaning and power into that story in your head, and it has you battling at each other because the perspective is that the other person is the person that's you're responding to the other person directly instead of responding to the story that you're holding, and it is presuming that the story that you're having has a reality to it, that it's real. And the truth is, our thoughts are transient, and they are incomplete and they are inaccurate at best. And if we just let these things pass, we're doing well. So very clearly, battle-free communication. Where is it coming from? Well, it's coming from realizing the cause of our experience. It's coming from realizing that how you see things is not the same as the other person sees it, and that's okay. So communication isn't about understanding, and you do not have to go into battle with them to make them understand what's going on. And refraining from talking problems. And this is this one here just, is the one that stands out as being quite, oh, what are you talking about? Because if you have a problem, you have to talk about it, surely. And I'm not saying that there aren't physical realities out there that need to be addressed at times, but when we talk about problems from the misconception that the other person is the problem and they are causing the problem, then talking about it is simply going to set off defensiveness in them, and you're coming across as judgmental, and the other person is then going to get defensive, and they're going to do one of two things. They're either going to retreat, which my ex used to do, and I can see now that he used to retreat, and that would piss me off even more. But and because my presumption of what that retreat was, oh, well, he doesn't care, you know, which maybe he did, maybe he didn't, you know, that's not for here right now, but it's storing. And we're only actually ever really going to know what, you know, the other person is doing and why they're doing it if you actually ask. We don't ask. We don't ask. You know, one time my ex, he had not been particularly helpful around the house and doing anything, and we were going through a phase where he was trying to do better before the next, you know, downturn, and he was never particularly helpful, and he suddenly started to do things in the kitchen. Italian Irish girl, I love the kitchen. I tried, you know, I like mucking around with food. I like, you know, doing that. I like cooking. I like mucking around with food. And he decided to do some stuff in the kitchen and take over. And I actually took that as my interpretation of that, my belief of why he was doing that was, I thought it was a passive-aggressive slap at me. And so, of course, you know, naturally, I responded in kind with, well, I responded to that presumption that it was a passive-aggressive slap at me, which, of course, then led to more argument, misunderstanding, and la, 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 and all the rest of it. And then I actually, a few weeks later, when he stopped doing it, I started getting churlish again, he actually told me you know, and it was a bit of a humbling moment. He actually sort of said, "Did you not think to ask?" And I'm like, "Actually, I didn't. Crap. You're right on that. You're wrong on everything else, but you're right on that. I didn't think to ask. I didn't think to ask why he was doing that." And I had a whole story in my head of why he was doing that, and I responded to that story. I didn't respond to, so if everything was the outside world making us feel stuff and we're responding to that, then everyone would be responding to the same outside stimulus in the same way. Because another wife, another woman might be married who might not have responded to the same experience that I did. And no, I didn't think to ask. And we catch ourselves, we don't. We presume a hell of a lot and we don't ask. And so when we are feeling miserable, when we're in a low mood, when things look like they're not going the way we want, then there's a little hint, that's not the time to communicate. And so the thoughts and emotions are like bubbles. As I said before, they are like bubbles. They arise spontaneously. We cannot control what thought pops in our head, and we cannot control the emotion that arises because of that thought, and that's okay. They are designed to rise and fall. We have something like 15 thoughts a second, like 70,000 thoughts a day. Some of them you are aware of, others you are not. Emotions arise with the thought. Both of them, like bubbles, they arise, they float about, and then they dissolve, they pop all by themselves without you actually having to go around popping them. So you don't actually have to do anything with the thought that you've got. You don't have to be scared of it. You don't have to manipulate it. You don't have to manipulate the feeling. You don't have to go digging into the past to understand the root of the thought that you've got, the why, the where. Hence why understanding is just, it's not relevant. It is not relevant to an experience of closeness to someone else, closeness to yourself, closeness to the universe. Understanding is irrelevant. I told you that we have our spirit self, and we are spirit beings. As I said, communication is not it's not necessary for mutual understanding. We don't need that to feel okay in our relationship with the other person in order to have a battle-free communication. You know, imagine if you could communicate your ill feelings. So a couple of couples will come into therapy and they'll go, well, we've been, you know, we talk about our problems and it's not fixing things. So it must be a communication problem. No, it's not. Imagine if you could communicate your ill feelings across to the other person more effectively, would that actually improve your relationship? The answer logically is no, it wouldn't, and it doesn't. Yet couples come into therapy going, it's a communication problem. We're not communicating our grudges and resentments, and we're, you know, those resentments that are actually temporary and will pass when our mood lifts and give rise to a hopefulness. No, we're going to get stuck in them and make them muddy, and we're going to put the galoshes on. We're going to get stuck in those really crappy feelings and crappy thoughts, and we're going to make them bigger by articulating them and, you know, putting them on the other person. Yeah. No, it's not a communication problem when you walk away from that feeling more disconnected, more disengaged, more distant, and filled with animosity. In fact, it's a sign that communication is working. It's just what you're communicating that's the problem. So to wrap up, use your level of closeness as a compass to assess how well your discussion is going. If after 10 minutes you're feeling closer, and I don't mean closer, I mean closer. If you're feeling secure, if you're feeling vibrant and enthusiastic, we know it, we've been in it, we have touches of it, where you're in the middle of a flow moment of something that you're enjoying and you feel great about, and you're just really engrossed in that moment, in that present moment. We feel vibrant, we feel radiant, we feel secure. We don't feel scared, we're not worrying, we're not thinking about the past, we're in that moment and it feels brilliant. that is available to us at any time. It's there, it's always there. That is why at the fundamental core, we're okay, they're okay, there's nothing wrong, you are perfectly fine. It is only the story that your temporary story that you're following that is telling you otherwise. And even in terms of relationships that are abusive, like I've been in 2 of them, had I had this awareness in those relationships, I would have been able to get out sooner with a lot less feelings of guilt and confusion. I wouldn't have been gaslit. When people, when they say you made me feel this way, well, had I had this knowledge, I could have easily gone and said, well, no, I'm not making you feel anything. You have a story about what's going on, and that is making you feel. And if you're behaving in a way that is problematic, that is coming from the fact that you have insecure thinking, creating insecure emotions. And we all, living beings, move towards things that make us feel okay, and we move away from things that don't. So that person is not behaving in an odd manner when they are seeking to be okay, but they have a misunderstanding of what is okay. They lose sight of the fact that they are actually already okay, and that it's only the waves of thought that are clouding their perception of their present-centered okayness that's resulting in them behaving the way they're behaving. Now, had I had this awareness, I would not have stayed in those marriages as long as I did. I certainly probably, had I had this understanding, I may not have even stepped into the second one. And so I'm not saying that, that this is, well, it's just your thinking, and so ignore physical reality. There is a physical reality. If you are physically unsafe, you need to remove yourself from that in the safest possible way using your local resources. Absolutely end with that one saying that. I'm not saying you're thinking up what's going on. Your suffering of what is going on, however, is the story in your head. A large chunk of what is our suffering of other people's difficult behaviour is the story we place on what it means to us, of us, about us. And it's got nothing to do with us. People are responding to their own story, we're responding to our own story, and our stories are not the same. They don't have to be the same, which is wonderful. We don't have to be on the same page with another person. We don't have to be compatible with them for it all to be, for having that closeness. And it's the closeness that is what you are looking for. So, very quickly, if what I've talked about to you today really resonated with you, and it's something you want to know more of or work with me on, my signature program, the Change of Heart program, is being launched on September 26th. So it's a 10-week supported program. You'll have 10 modules and 10 live Q&A sessions with me. You'll also be able to access me through WhatsApp privately, one-on-one. You'll have daily access, fair use policy included, please. There is a time difference as well, so understanding that maybe, you know, I'm in Australia, you could be elsewhere. So understanding that you may leave a message and I'll get back to you ASAP, but you'll have daily access to me during the program. And so the idea would be module will drop down on you in the beginning of the week, and at the end of the week, you'd have the live Q&A to talk about the module and what you've understood and how it is applying, the implication it's having on you and your life and your relationships. So yes, that will, I am doing all the funnily stuff for that now. So those will be dropped and ready to go when people can sign up for it. If you're interested and want to know even more about that, please DM me or comment on below the video, and I can tell you more. So I'm excited about that, absolutely. So thank you. That's it. I think I went over a little bit, so apologies. And I'm leaving now. Thank you so much for everything. Bye.